All right. We're here on February 23rd, and yesterday was a pretty big day in Mexico. I'm in Mexico. Xavier, you're in Colombia. Kelly, you are in Belize. We're all abroad. Yesterday in Mexico, I opened my phone and there was just rapid fire reels and videos. Just my phone it was just like blowing up about the cartel leader being killed in Jalisco. And I really didn't think like I was like, oh, that's interesting. I noticed that there was just like a lot of content. And I figured that maybe because it was picking up on my location and because it could be quite, dangerous, even though I'm a 30-hour drive from Jalisco. It's a 30-hour drive. So that really actually doesn't even make sense on its own. But I was like, okay, I guess because I'm in Mexico, they're showing me content I would be interested in. However, it looks like just about everyone I knew got bombed with the algorithm on what was going on in Mexico yesterday. I was wondering, maybe you guys were offline, maybe you're enjoying your Sunday. How did this all appear on your end, being outside of the country?
I'll let you start, Kelly.
Okay. I think it started sort of filtering in quite slowly on my end. You just sort of, you heard about, El Mencho, being taken out and all of that kind of thing. And then what kind of rapidly started happening was friends of mine, because I'm usually based in Mexico as well. Friends of mine living in Mexico were suddenly like, oh, somebody sent this to me. There's a curfew happening. And then I started reaching out, but this was around midday already, and so I started reaching out to friends, just checking in, because somebody was like, oh, a Cozumel's under curfew, and a friend was like, oh, this is going on. And some things, what I sort of quickly realized were happening was that firstly, there was no curfew in Cozumel. So somehow that was sort of being told to people, but it obviously wasn't real. I think people were told to be cautious, but there was no curfew. And then as the day progressed, then I had friends from the US checking in on me. So it just kind of escalated as the day wore on. And I'm assuming that's kind of what happened, was that social media just, there was like an uptick on all of the Mexican related news around this. And so just as the day wore on, more and more people were contacting me. And then that's also when I started seeing a lot of like, yes, there were real things that were happening. Yes, things got set on fire, but there was also a lot of fake stuff being circulated as well.
Yeah. Xavier, you didn't really know much till today.
Was living under a rock. Like, I don't really use like TikTok and Instagram like that, but I was on YouTube all day. YouTube has like shorts, and I didn't see anything. Like I said, I saw some people talking about it in a WhatsApp group that I'm part of, but I didn't pay too much of attention to it. I didn't realize it was this big of a deal until like literally this morning. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like bigger things have happened, but I mean, the news in itself is big. I'm not going to minimize that. However, in terms of it being like a national, you know, catastrophe, that doesn't really feel like that's what happened. We've got 25 National Guard killed. There was like 15 cartel members killed in this. This was like a military operation. The US had a task force assisting, and I think that what I noticed, the headlines were like, US tourists trapped, kind of, but not really. They were just sheltering in place really for a little bit. They closed the airports. And the people showing videos were like, you could see the smoke in the background. There was one of tourists, like, they're still hanging out in the pool, like rooftop pool. They didn't really look like they were like suffering. So I thought, wow, these headlines are kind of dramatic. It was like violence erupts all over Mexico, wave of violence. Here in Playa del Carmen, it was like 3 cars got set on fire. No one was in them. Other reports, they were actually removing people from the cars before setting them on fire. I don't believe that any, foreigners were in danger, but the rest of the world, I just never, people were tuning into this that I never thought would, so I don't know what it looked like in the US, but that brings up all sorts of questions. And then what's real and what's not. There was old footage circulating. A car fire is something that, can happen often, putting a timestamp on it. They had footage and photos of an Argentinian restaurant in Playa del Carmen burning down. It looks very real. Someone had to like circulate a meme where it just said false really big on it.
Mm.
A friend had told before I saw that going around, she was like, "Hey, you might see something about Alpha." Sorry, I can't remember the name of the Argentinian restaurant.
La
But she was like,
Fonda.
"Yeah, you might see
Yeah.
something, but we all know that's fake here because I am actually 30 minutes away." So, in these kind of news events that are happening, obviously we had Sunday's just generally a slow news day. I know that from working in journalism, like things that may not be like, "Oh my God, this is happening," or, on a Sunday, like there's not much else going on. But when these things happen, how do we know what's real and what's not? Some of these fakes actually looked very convincing, and there's, I'm cautious to say like too much on about what happened because I think we all feel a little murky with the facts, and kind of looking at the, maybe like who has a vested interest in this.
Mm.
We know that the peso has gotten very strong over the US dollar. I think the strongest it's been in like a year. And we know like tourism is really thriving in full swing here. Those kind of headlines, that kind of incident surely will impact tourists coming to Mexico. Maybe it'll blow over in a few weeks, but I'm in like every foreigner Facebook group, and the amount of posts, should I cancel my vacation? I'm supposed to be there in 2 weeks. That was just that's the questions being like blown up in the groups right now. So yeah, I'm not here to comment on like US Mexican relations. I don't know enough, but I can see how quickly we can be, manipulated by just it was like very interesting what was going on. It was very like clickbaity. Like it was like, whoa, like they're setting things on fire. Like what's going to happen next? It was like a movie. Okay, now they've off this cartel leader. Is there going to be major retaliation throughout the country, throughout Jalisco? And here the governor, not the governor, but I guess the mayor, Playa del Carmen, said like to stop all activities. I think that happened. And they were, we have road stops here on the carretera, the highway. And I had a few friends go by, and they were, the one you go from like Cancun to get into Playa.
Yeah.
It's like right before, it's like the police are there, and mostly you
Yeah.
just slow down and you keep going. But she said they were stopping every single car. So there was heightened security yesterday. But that's all I really know. But yeah, everything's fine here. I think people got a totally different impression. And I'm just curious, and maybe we'll learn more because this just happened, but we'll learn more about what was fake and what wasn't, and how these things get started and how they're circulating. Is it just someone with some time on their hands that wants to cause some trouble, or is it foreign actors that want to manipulate, you know, the perception of tourists? Is there a, you know, I just see in these times there's just so much opportunity for other actors to come in and manipulate certain events to control the public narrative.
Yeah. You're on mute, Xavier.
Wow, sorry. So we already went through this before, right? Like, wasn't there like confirmation that this happened like in 2016 with Russia? Like they actually proved it.
Yeah.
Like they had something to do with like some of the things that were going on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like it's not like we're like we haven't been through this before. There's been countless other ones, but we'll talk about the ones that are closest to this. So it's not like a foreign actor hasn't done that before, or that the U.S. hasn't done that as well, because we have probably done that multiple times in other countries as well. So yeah, it's not like off the table.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the most extreme was that there was mass executions at the Guadalajara airport. I did see some of that footage. It did seem very real. People there running, but it was never confirmed that people were actually, any civilians died. At least no foreigners killed. And within that, like, I find that I do gravitate to getting news from people on the ground,
Mm.
right? And they're like, you can see what's going on, and they're talking, they're like, here's the situation. There were several people on rooftops, and you could see the smoke behind them. They seemed fine. They were like, it's really quiet. And that seemed unsensationalized, like, and normal, but I was just finding these people through the algorithm. I don't know if they were. So my next thought was like, at what point does it get so good? It looks like someone, not just some clickbaity, like cars on fire, everybody's running out, like, but actually
Mm.
someone like me speaking and, hey, can you guys see this in the background? I'm just giving you, the firsthand account for what's going on in Puerto Vallarta right now. I could see that happening and someone like me like totally falling for that because it's, some of the over the top stuff is easy to catch. And I was wondering how that, with the capabilities of like AI video now, I could see that really happening.
Yeah, and I think this is something like where we all as individuals need to take accountability for what we are sharing, and what we are seeing, because I think it is so hard now to. I mean, some things, like you say, are clearly AI, but other things look really credible. And I think this is the problem. Like, it's both, social media, it's both wonderful because we can go and see people's firsthand accounts that are actually real. But now with these deep fakes that are happening, it's getting harder and harder and harder to tell. And so I think each individual needs to really take accountability about how are you sharing this information with people? It's all well and good when you're sharing cute little AI things of, bunnies on trampolines, and then you can say, okay, I know this is fake and this is AI, but it's still cute. But then when it comes to these real world events that have huge impacts on people's lives, we have to take responsibility and go and double check and fact check these things so that we are not sharing fakes, so that we are not fear mongering, and that we're not adding to the chaos and the over sensationalization that happens. Because I feel like, unfortunately, and this is not new, like Xavier was saying, like this is not new, especially with media. Media has always been manipulated to a degree, but with the introduction of AI, it's so much more easily manipulated, and it's so much harder to figure out, okay, this is fake, this is not real. And so this has always been going on, but now social media and the new AI capabilities is really exposing how much of our media is fake. What we see online is fake. It was always happening in the background, but now it's become really transparent. And so people really need to be accountable for what they share, be accountable for what they're consuming because of the algorithm as well, because that algorithm, sort of like figures things out in the background, and then it could be potentially be sharing more and more fakes if that seems like a popular
Yeah.
thing to look at. So I think that's what I would really caution people to do, because at the end of the day, the people on the ground are just normal everyday human beings. They just want to live their lives, and by sharing fakes and fearing, it causes more of a divide between people, and it causes more xenophobia. And that is not where we want to go at this point in time or ever. So yeah, be accountable for what you share, and be accountable for fact checking your own things and for what you're sharing online.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think even if you're like, do you even like, why do you even need to share? You know what I mean? I'm kind of like, is it like, what's your intention? Is it just to like, oh my God, look at this? Or is it like, I really want people
Yeah.
because I'm living in Mexico and I want them to know what's really happening?
Right. And that's such a good thing. It is intention. And I think that's also why it's really important to follow people who are on the ground, follow the correct media, the correct reporters, like really be mindful of where you're getting the information. Don't follow some random person on the other side of the world who has no connection to Mexico, and even for us as foreigners, who, living in a foreign country, we don't understand the nuances either of what goes on enough to really have an opinion on certain things, so, follow the local people on the ground, follow those people, because they're the ones who know the history, who've lived it, they have the lived truth of it. Those of us foreigners here, we're just experiencing it through our
Verify
own
correctly.
lens. Hmm?
Yeah, there's one thing that I noticed that they have on X. So on X, you can actually see where an account was created, where it's like created from, and where
Okay.
they're currently at, right? And that's a big thing they notice. Like when people are talking about certain things, like a big thing on X is to go to their account and like see where the account is based. You know what I mean? And a lot of times they're not based at where they're talking about. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's like a huge thing. But I don't think they have something like that on Facebook, on Instagram, And I feel like those platforms allow for a lot more like disinformation. Already now with the current tools we have, there's a lot of, especially older people on Facebook who think things are real that are not real all the time. It's like a huge thing on that platform. So yeah, I don't see it getting better. I see it getting worse. And I actually don't put the onus on like the individuals. I feel like the platforms that this information is being disseminated on, they need to do a better job of like some type of like AI detection, watermarking, those kind of things. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah. I mean, and you're right, because people don't police themselves. And so then they are not always
You know what I mean?
upfront and transparent. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it's easy to get duped. Well, let's move on. I was thinking about if you guys had anything this week that gave you the AI ick. And
Mm,
I've been seeing some things and I'm just starting to note them that are not like, terrible penalty or like, but I think more in terms of like the etiquette of being online, especially if you have a personal brand. So I wanted to talk about chatbots. I've come across autoresponders from people, and sometimes like it's helpful to know like, hey, they're gonna get back to me when they can. But mostly, especially in Instagram, I find the way that people are using autoresponders is just lazy, especially people who have personal brands. And it's not transparent. So like I was showing you guys that um a friend, she posted a story about it being her birthday, and I just said happy birthday. And her chatbot responded and was like, I don't actually have birthdays, but it sounded like it was her kind of. And I was like, what do you mean? And then it kind of went into like her business pitch. And then I was just like, what? And then it responded again, like, oh yeah, like, I bet that was a plot twist for you. Haha. And then it started telling me exactly what it just told me about her business offerings. And I just thought, it must be challenging as a business owner to like want to make sure that when people are reaching out to you about products and services on your personal brand page, where your life and your business are connected, that they're not slipping through the cracks. But also, I really feel like some of these encounters could really like turn people off from your brand. And I thought, what about just being transparent? Hey, I don't always get to all my messages. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So my virtual assistant, my chatbot assistant, is here to answer any questions, let you know about my program. That could be part of the autoresponder, but just what do you guys think about this? Is it as ick as I feel about it? But how can,
yeah.
these productivity tools just be a little more personable?
I feel like this has been going on. I mean, we've had like automated like phone banking for how many decades now? You know what I mean? The customer service where it takes you like 10, 15 minutes just to get through like the teleprompt system to get to a human. You know what I mean? They've been doing this for a while. Even with like the whole like getting help on a website, like an e-commerce site, right? I don't know, like Temu, whatever. Like almost all the time you're dealing with like a chatbot agent up until a certain point, you know? So I feel like with current AI, it's gotten a lot worse. And then now it's like everyday people have access to it. So people who before wouldn't have access to some kind of like tele-automated system, like now anyone can have that. If that makes sense. Um, and yeah, I think people are taking advantage of it, but they're doing it in like really gross ways, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think, and it's so easy to just be transparent about it. Like, I think that's the other thing is just like you were saying, just have a little, one liner and just say, hey, I can't get to my stuff. So here's my little chatbot because I can give you more information this way. And that's all
Yeah.
it takes, I think, to a degree, because it's you're not upset in a way that you're talking to, well, you are and you aren't. I think, like, it's okay that talking to a bot, but don't have it pretend like it's you. That's what really hacks me off, is like, don't make it seem like it's you and pretend like it's you. That's that false, that I don't know what the word is, but that really creates the ick for me. So you don't know that you're talking to the chatbot initially until it really makes some like ludicrous mistake. And so I think just have some transparency around it, because I think also, and I think this is the other thing, just in general, is AI, in order to make our lives easier to take care of all of those, busy work, background tasks, the spreadsheets, all of that is so great. I think where we should be using less AI is in these personal interactions, because it really does sully your relationship. Xavier was just talking about the banking and the phone. It's you can't even email a person anymore at an institution without it being AI. And it's like I just need I don't even need 5 minutes of someone's time to just answer something really simple. But you can't get that information because also the bots don't work that way. They don't have any of your personal information. And so, I feel like that's where the service industry and maybe maybe I should say, customer facing industries and support systems are, I feel like, really going downhill because they're not able to maintain the customer relationships in the same way anymore the minute they put in a bot to deal with anything other than something very basic like, oh, print my statement for me or something.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Yeah.
that kind of, segues into founder-led marketing. Whether you have a personal brand or you're a business owner, I can see with all of the AI slop out there that founders and having a face on a brand is going to be the most important thing going forward. Really like everything Tyler Dink of Beehive's doing. I'm kind of following his model. And we also are, using the Beehive newsletter platform for the HyperFix. But he recently did an interview about how he is the founder of Beehive. So he has that. And then 2 years ago, he started his own newsletter, Big Desk Energy. He grew to 120,000 subscribers within 2 years and earns a six-figure income. He sends out once a week. And one thing he said is that he has a VA every time somebody signs up for his newsletter. In the form to sign up, you can give your social media handles, and he has his VA go and follow them on social media and go into their DMs and just say, "Hi, great to connect." Um, he also created a chatbot, which it's very clear it's a chatbot, and he's like, "I created this chatbot so you can learn everything I did." And it's like his whole strategies with newsletters, like he's trained it to really like have a wealth of information. You can ask the chatbot about how much money he makes with Big Desk Energy. You can ask him if he did paid or organic acquisition, and he tells you. Like, it's really cool. And I thought, wow, that to me is a way of personalizing. And because like the beauty of the chatbot is like you can freely share information with people who want to learn about how you did something. And so it gives them an additional resource. So in that case, I think that could be really good. Even though he's not reaching out directly to everyone who subscribes, I think having his VA like do that personal. And so what he basically says is the more personalization you can do with your content and outreach, especially with, with AI, that's how you're going to build trust. And building in public is also a huge part of that. He gives incentives, for getting on his newsletter. He basically had a thing where if you got two people to sign up for his newsletter, he would give you the Series B deck that he had used to raise his last investment round. It was like very valuable. Like not a lot of companies would give that information up, but I thought that was, rewarding people for like giving referrals and growing the list. And that was not a paid thing that he had to do. So he like really leverages his own expertise and his own, the content and what he's doing inside Beehive to grow the audience that way. So I thought that was, I'm leaning more towards that approach, but I do think founder-led marketing is how people are going to really understand what you do and kind of come along that journey and invest like into your story.
Yeah. Here's another thing with founder-led marketing and why it's so powerful as well. People don't buy brands, especially nowadays. People buy people, right? So when someone invests in you, they buy from you. They're buying it from you, right? And another thing with founder-led marketing is that it follows you around, right? So if you're constantly building and creating cool things, all of that equity gets wrapped up into like your marketing, your identity. You know what I mean? So like if you go off and do something else, kind of like the things that you've done before kind of goes along with that. Does that make sense?
Right, right.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing is I think that the personalization, there's no reason for it to feel so impersonal. like, like you've just said, is there is a way to personalize it, because at the end of the day, people are not able to get to every DM. It's just impossible. It's just the sheer loads. Being able to, use your, a VA to help personalize things, and then, a chatbot that actually does something useful. I think that's the way to go about it, because at the end of the day, people want that connection. That's what people are looking for. And when they, really align themselves and they really like you as a person and your product, that's what you need to foster. And I think that it's just so lazy to, in the way that people just, shove on an AI bot or whatever, and then they're not open and transparent about it. And they do it in a way that just seems like, well, we don't really care about your messages. We don't care about what you think. We don't care about your opinion. All we care about is your
Yeah.
money. And so I think that that's what it is. It's this kind of like, it makes you seem like you don't care about your client or your customer. And so, I don't think it takes a lot in order to make it more personal and more inviting for a client as well.
Yeah. Hey, quick question for you, Lucy. Where was that bot at? Can you share that with us? Was it a WhatsApp bot or a Instagram
How
bot?
you
No, no, no. For your friend, when you were telling her happy birthday, and it responded with her like business bot.
It
Was it
was
WhatsApp?
on Instagram, so I think maybe it was
Okay.
ManyChat.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure.
Just curious. Okay.
And I don't know what goes all into in the training. It's like, like when it says weird stuff too, like I understand if it's just giving some kind of vanilla, like, this is my services, like, that's just canned. But like to tell me it wasn't actually her birthday when I'm clearly like seeing it in her story, I don't actually have like just saying like weird stuff that just didn't make sense. And it was just like, I mean, she did later like come back and say, thanks so much. And I was like, it just feels like a weird thing to have to like interact with someone like that. We don't even acknowledge that there was this weird exchange with her chatbot. And then she comes in and actually says, thank you later. Like, I get if it's like your friends, but I'm not a client of hers, but I'm like, okay, this just feels like it's creating more like back and forth and like no continuity in the chat in the DM. So it makes me more inclined to like fall off, I think. If I think it's just a chat bot responding to me in weird ways versus like the
Yeah.
actual person. So I would risk that. But just things like to think about. Like it may seem and it may seem like it's like the norm that, oh, people are just gonna get that's a chat bot and they're not really gonna care. Well, I think it does matter. You like it's these little things, and the more kind of backlash around AI and AI for, not being personal and all of these things that people don't like about it, when they start seeing your brand like represent AI in that way, I think it's just turning people off. I think people are gravitating to real people, real experiences, like real things, real conversations, which is kind of brings me to the end here. I'm on Wednesday, I'll be going to the new media conference that Matt McGarry's hosting in Austin, Texas. And like, I mean, I think he's like sold this thing out and it's only been a few years growing. It's mostly newsletter people. And there's a lot focusing on like AI and how people are growing their list and just what they're doing to monetize their newsletters in this space. And, I obviously will report back after I go, but just seeing like the excitement around it and people wanting to connect and people are like organizing their own dinners and like a coffee tour. It's just really like a great energy and a great vibe. And I'm like, man, I just get the sense people are really looking for this kind of in-person kind of connection, like more and more. And if you can provide that, you can just provide that space for people to connect. I think we're going to have like a resurge of conferences, retreats, live events. That was really like a thing. I think the pandemic kind of made those things, not as popular because people were just, staying home. And then you realize like these things kind of cost money. And there was just like a lot of that going on before the pandemic. But I think that we're gonna see like a comeback with that. And that's gonna
Yeah.
be the place to, find clients, build your community. Because when you're sitting face to face from someone, there's no doubt in your mind that it's not an AI bot. So I
So
think we'll see more of that.
So this is something that's been talked about a lot lately, actually, how being offline is like the new luxury, right? So Gen Z is doing it pretty heavy, right? Where they're looking for these ways to like find third spaces and like do things more in person and just like disconnect, right? It's actually kind of like a status symbol to like not be on social media so much, right? So I think we already kind of see that happening. And I do think it grows as like AI kind of like creeps its way into more things, especially like these human to human interactions that used to be done by humans, but now digitally are done by AI. I think more and more people will look for in-person events, live music, like just things like that will just like skyrocket, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're
I
right.
agree.
I like that. What did you say? Being
Offline
offline
is
is,
the new luxury.
I agree.
Mm.
I agree. Yeah. And I think more people like the company that I'm working for have our first ever retreat. It's all remote staff, but they're bringing us in person
Yeah.
next month. So, I see companies kind of moving towards that too, especially if they have like remote teams. Like you just got to get people in the same room to
Yep.
really make some things happen. So great. Well, yeah, I will take notes. I'll report back next week on the new media. But if you guys have, or if anyone watching this has anything you're dying to know, you want me to find out for you at the conference about newsletters and growing your list, then I'm happy to ask.
Nice. Sounds good. Well,
Thanks.
yeah. See you guys. Peace.